Hello everybody and welcome to Watch Dan. Today I'll be comparing three watches to each other. The first one I'm going to look at is the Christopher Ward 42mm C60 Trident Pro 300 in white, followed by the Monta Oceanking 40mm in blue and the 41mm Geno Silent Service in black. So without further ado, I'll just go ahead and jump right into it. Christopher Ward. Well, this is a really cool watch, guys. This is the C60 300 Trident Pro 42mm from Christopher Ward. It is a 22mm lug width. It has a ceramic bezel insert, a white dial, obviously, white lume, screw down crown, 300 meters water resistance, and a couple of really trick features. So this watch has the light catcher case, which is kind of like Christopher Ward's sort of standardized case style. You can see how it really steps in on the bottom. It has multiple facets, and what that does is when you're wearing the watch, it doesn't look like there's anything down here. So it effectively cuts off a couple of millimeters from the bottom of the watch and makes it look like a very slim profiled case, which is pretty cool. It's a very nice looking case, and it's got a lot of angles, and it's got these kind of satin finish areas, and then these kind of polished bevels on the top and the bottom. And so there's a couple things I really like about this watch and a couple things that I think they could really improve on. First off, I'll talk about the dial. It's a white dial, obviously, and it's very dirty. Give me 1 second. I'll go ahead and clean this thing off real quick using my trusty Zenny polishing cloth. It's a white dial with white lume, and it's got these kind of sword style hands. Interesting looking hands. There's not a whole lot of reflectiveness to these indices and hands, but what do you expect? I paid $800 for this to my door. New, but not new, but used, but basically new condition is what I would say. Retail is right around $1,100 for these watches, but Christopher Ward's always sending out discounts. You can get 150 bucks off here or there. You can get 10% off. So just subscribe on their website, and chances are you'll find a really good deal on this watch. So the dial, it's kind of a very plain white. The bezel is ceramic insert, and it's black. Obviously, it's lume on all these numerals here. The bezel is easy to turn. I'll go ahead and let you take a listen here. It's a very easy to turn bezel. It's a little notchy. I wouldn't say it's particularly reassuring when you're turning it. And it's definitely not what I would call refined, but it does line up absolutely perfectly every time. So that's great. They give you these little, what do you call them, gradients, a little stainless steel gradient ring here, which is gonna line up perfectly with your arrow at the top there. So it kind of helps you just know where you are on the dial. It's a very slim, like thin bezel from one side to the other. And what I found is at nighttime, it can be hard to read these numbers, and it can be hard to tell what is a 5 and what is an arrow. And if it's not loomed up enough, it can be hard to tell where anything is on there. And they don't have minute markers between the numbers. So it's just one thing I think they could improve upon on this. You have, they're spaced out in 5s. So it's hard to tell, but they do give you the little stainless ring. So during the daytime, it's not a big deal. Being a white dial with white lume, this is a low light problem. This watch, if I take it, somewhere, if I'm walking through my house and it's kind of dark in a room or a hallway, it can be very hard to see what time it is on this watch. So that's not so much a design issue as it is just I picked up a white watch with a white dial and white lume. So if that's a concern for you guys, maybe go with a different color dial. The crown is excellent. Mine actually happens to line up just about perfectly there. It unscrews very nicely, and once it's out, you get that little pop, and it's out, and there's really no movement to this crown. It's very solid. It winds very nicely. It feels like any other Sellita SW200, to be honest. But the thread uptake is great. It is very easy to screw this thread in. You can do it with your eyes shut, no problem. The mid case, again, is a light catcher case. Satin finish in the middle, with polishing on the bottom and polishing on the top. The bracelet links are thick and chunky. They're very hardy. They've done a nice job making sure the backside of the screws lines up pretty flush with each link and on either side, you know, sort of like you get in a Rolex. The clasp is thick and heavy duty, and it has a very nice dual pusher system. And when it locks up, it's very reassuring. You know, this ain't going nowhere when it's on your wrist. This watch, guys, is very heavy. It's 158 grams. It's the heaviest watch of this trio. And it feels it. And that's one of my biggest complaints with this watch. The weight of it, combined with the thick, you know, 22 millimeter lug width, and just sort of the unrefined, kind of almost jagged edges that you find in different places, and the straight, almost straight swing arm down here. There's not much of a radius to this swing arm. This is not the most comfortable watch to wear all day. Certainly not of this trio. And when I wear this watch for the whole day, I find myself having to take it off from time to time just to let my wrist breathe and just to get it off for a little while, because it tends to start pinching in a couple different spots. So I don't know if it would be better on the 20 millimeter, you know, the 38 millimeter version with the 20 millimeter lugs might fit a little better. But for the price, you're not gonna beat this watch. It has so much to offer. You know, you can see, of the three, it's the only one that has a see-through case back, which is really cool. You get to see that rotor with the twin flag logos, you know, engraved on it. You have the quick removal bracelet, which is awesome. If you're the type of person who likes to put their watch on a strap, this watch might be better on a strap, to be honest, than on this bracelet. Not that it's not a nice bracelet, I just can't wear it for very long. So that's cool. If you like to swap it out, it's nice to have that quick, you know, a quick release tool there. It does have a quick adjust clasp on it, which I'll try my best to show you guys. You have to get your thumbnail in there, but if you can get it over, it's got at least a link. So it's very easy to size it and get it exactly where you want it. And I'll go ahead and pop it on my 7.5 inch wrist so you guys can see how it looks. Keep in mind, my camera's kind of close here, so hopefully it doesn't distort it too much. But you can see how the bottom of that case sort of just disappears under the watch and against your wrist. And it makes it wear flatter than it is. So of these three watches, this is the one that I would wear to the beach and not be too concerned about getting scratched up or dented or anything like that. It's heavy duty, 300 meters of water resistant. I don't think you could kill this watch if you tried. It sort of reminds me of my Zin 556 that I had a while ago. And then you just feel like, you know, take it to work with you. You work outside, you work in construction or something, this would be the best watch of these three for that type of situation. It's bulletproof. That's how I would define it. So that's the Christopher Ward. And now I will talk about the Monta Oceanking 40 millimeter. Now this is a beautiful watch, guys, and it's dirty, so I need to clean it up a little bit here. It's a 40 millimeter watch. This watch is weighing in at 154 grams, so it's a little bit lighter weight than the Christopher Ward, and it's got this crazy sunburst blue dial. Sorry, it's a fingerprint magnet, guys. I should wear gloves. It's got this crazy sunburst blue dial, which I think is really cool looking. It's really what drew me to this watch in the first place. I had an eye on Monta when they first came out, and I really liked them, but I had never worn one or held it. But after getting this one in hand, guys, it's top notch. The finishing, the fit, the finish, just the way it's all put together. There's so many little polished bevels and accents all over the place. You can just tell they took their time. You know, when they made this watch, they took their time to give it a lot of character, I guess you would say. And I'll try to get some of that for you. You can see that mirror polished side there. It's a slab side, but it's got this mirror polish bevel on the top. It's got a mirror polish bevel on the bottom. It's got this cupcake bezel, which is really cool looking. And they have these mirror polish bevels where the end links meet the lugs. The crown guards are polished on the other side. Each individual link has a mirror polished edge to it, while the sides and the tops of the links are satin finished. There's a mirror polished bevel on the clasp. The actual flip lock here is mirror polished as well. And of course, the swing arm, both sides of the swing arm are mirror polished. So there's a lot of just kind of glisten and shine to this watch. It just sort of shines in the light, and it's really pretty. It reflects light everywhere. But because of that, this is not the watch that I would want to wear to the beach. This is the dive watch that I'd, wear out to a nice dinner or wear outside, playing with my kid. I don't want to scratch it up. I don't want to bang it up. And particularly because this particular blue model, they don't make it anymore. So I paid $1,500 for this. It was basically like new condition. Retail is closer to $2,100, but you can't find the blue anywhere. They don't sell it anymore. They don't make it anymore. The indices and the hands are very nicely polished. They're rhodium plated. Let's see if I can get a little bit of that light to bounce off there for you guys. Rhodium plated and beautiful. And the dial layout, there's not much text on there. I think just the right amount of text, to be honest. The date window is mirror polished as well. And you probably have noticed by now, guys, but my bezel does not line up perfectly. And yes, it does drive me crazy. If I push it a little over, it's close, but its default position is just slightly off center. For a $2,100 watch, that's not acceptable, guys. So hopefully Monta can work on their quality control a little bit and make sure they weed things like that out, because I don't like that one bit. The ceramic bezel is really cool looking. They did a nice job matching the blues up. It is fully loomed all the way around. I think the black version is maybe only loomed at the very top where the arrow is. This one's loomed all the way around. And stay tuned at the end of this, guys. I'm going to put some good loom shots up for you guys so you can compare and contrast these three watches. So the bezel on this is what I would call chunky and crunchy. It's not particularly easy to move, although I wouldn't call it hard to move. It's a 60 click, and it doesn't have the refinement that like my Tudor Black Bay 58 had. That thing was just polished. It was a little on the notchy side, but it just had a little bit more of a glide to it. This one's like, of these three bezels, I would say it's my least favorite. So I will be sending this watch back to Monta under warranty because there's a little bit of play there. I don't know if it's maybe something wrong with my particular model, but having a bezel that does not line up on a watch this expensive, that's a no-no. Of the three watches, this is my favorite clasp for sure. It's just great. The micro adjust system in here is so nice. You pop it down, and I'm sorry about my camera, but you have incremental sliding, which is very nice for getting it exactly where you want it. Like I usually wear it right about there. If my wrist swells up a little bit, pop it once. lock it up, good to go. The friction fit hockey puck is pretty cool. I hope it lasts a long time. There's not much to it. It's literally just a friction fit, but it's very reassuring when it closes and it feels good. The case back on this watch, not see-through, but very, very svelte. And I like the shape of the, what would you call it? Whatever tool they use to take the case back off. It's a polygon shape and it's pretty cool looking. I like it when they don't just do some generic, you know, holes or little slits or something. This just looks really nice. No quick release feature on this bracelet. I don't know why you would want to take this watch off its bracelet. The bracelet is one of the best parts of this watch. It articulates everywhere. You know, it's an oyster style, but the oyster articulates in the center and on the sides. And it gives this kind of like snake skin feel to it. It's just very, very nice to use. Nice to actuate and extremely comfortable on the wrist. It's a very, very comfortable watch. I'll go ahead and pop it on my 7.5-inch wrist for you guys right now. And you can see, get out of here, towel. It fits like a dream. Very comfortable. This is a watch you can wear all day, no problem, and it's never gonna bother you. It's just silky smooth, all those rounded edges everywhere. There's no spot on this watch where it pinches, and it's just an all-day wear watch, guys. It's so comfortable, and it looks so nice too. I will say, the crown is my least favorite part of this watch, besides my misaligned crunchy bezel. The crown on this one is kind of this little cupcake affair, and the shape of it just makes it hard to grip. It's hard to grip, it's hard to turn, it's a little on the small side. So those are just a couple little things that I think Monta could do to improve this watch in the future. Make the crown a little bigger, a little easier to grab. But I love that blue color. I think it's so pretty. Take this one off the wrist, guys. And now, moving on to the Geno. This watch fascinates me. You can see on the bottom, it says hand built in America. I've been corresponding with John at Geno. He's either the head honcho or one of the two head honchos, but he builds these watches himself, and I don't think they have a factory. I think he's building these watches, you know, either in his house or in a small office, but the amount of hand building that goes into this watch, it far exceeds basically any other company I've come across. You know, it's not, obviously not going to be like Patek Philippe or a Longonzona levels of hand finishing, but it's way more than this watch, and it's way more than this watch, and it's more than a Rolex. It's more than a Tudor. The correspondence I've had with John over at Geno, basically, the case back, I'll show it to you. The case back, the mid case, the bezel, and the crown are all manufactured in America. And they're all finished in America. They're all ground down by hand and finished in America, which I think is pretty cool. They give it this little edge here, you know, a la older Rolexes, and a beautiful mirror polish. It's a little dirty, guys, but it's a really, really nicely finished watch. So, hand built in America. The indices in the hands are diamond cut and rhodium plated, just like the Monta. And I just can't pick it up here, but the way these hands and indices shine during the daytime, it's mesmerizing. I can't take my eyes off it. It really is It really is just something different. The crown is just as good as the Christopher Ward. It unthreads nicely. It winds basically exactly the same, being the same movement in SW200, and the uptake is perfect. It's easy to grip, it's easy to turn. The bezel, guys, my favorite part of this watch. Let me just demonstrate. Oop, sorry, I banged my camera. It's got this kind of Seiko glide to it, but with much more pronounced clicks. You can turn it quickly, and you can turn it very slowly. 120 clicks, and just so buttery. It feels like hot molasses or hot syrup. That's kind of the only way I can describe the way that bezel feels. The knurling on the edge is meant to evoke a down the barrel cross section of a submarine, which this is named the Silent Service. And if you don't know, that's what they call the submarine, the submariners. Not the Rolex, but the actual submariners who go down in the ocean and protect our freedoms. So Silent Service is a cool name for this watch. I love how the case tapers inward at the top, giving you more purchase on the bezel. I think that's really, really cool. The dial is a deep, glossy black, and the Cyclops is 2.5 times magnification, so it's very nice to read from far away. I really, really like this watch. There's something about this watch that makes me not want to take it off my wrist. I paid right around $1,300 for this watch with phase 1 pre-order pricing. And I think it's going to jump up to closer to $1,700 once that's done. So if you're interested, now's the time to buy it. So moving on to this bracelet. The bracelet is not made in America, and they readily admit this bracelet is made overseas in China. But guys, just look at the tolerances between the lugs and the end links. They're so tight, there's just literally no daylight. They are Rolex tight. The taper of the bracelet down to the clasp, which is basically a carbon copy of a Rolex. It's very high quality. It closes very nicely. There's no logo on here. And in my correspondence with Geno, they told me that they had mocked up some designs that did have a logo on the back, but that they thought it just looked more chic to leave it off of there. And they used to have the little rose right here, I guess, which stuck out a little bit, kind of like you would see with the 5-pointed crown, but that would get stuck on things and it would constantly be opening. So they got rid of that. But they do have this really, really nice bracelet. Now, I would say of these 3 watches, this micro adjust is maybe the one that leaves the most to be desired. Although it does move nicely. Let's see if I can get it to focus. It moves nicely. I usually keep it right around there. It pops back in no problem. The bracelet's very, very well done. Don't get me wrong. If you look at those screws, it looks like a Rolex. The way they come to the edge but don't stick out even the slightest little bit. It looks really good. And guys, this watch is so comfortable. This watch is easily as comfortable as the Monta, maybe more comfortable than the Monta, which is hard to believe because that is a very comfortable watch. This watch just begs to be worn all day. It's so comfortable, it's so nice. I'll go ahead and pop it on my 7.5-inch wrist. Sorry guys, I gotta get this towel out of here. There you go. Geno Silent Service. It sits flat, it sits comfortably, easily adjustable, so legible at nighttime. The lume is insane on this watch, and the dial layout just makes it legible from all angles. no matter what level of light you have. Low light, no light, high light. You have the gradient, the minute gradients on the bezel all the way around. That big arrow at the top. It's just great. It's just a great watch. It's my favorite watch that I own right now. This is the Goldilocks watch, guys. It's good at everything and bad at nothing. There's really no downside to this watch. You know, while the Monta bezel isn't that great, neither is the Christopher Ward bezel. This one's fantastic. Comfortable, not so comfortable. Fantastic. Hand finished too. All these things are hand finished on here. You don't get that with any of these other watches, or either of these other watches. So this watch right here, guys, is the one that I would have, and it's also the lightest. You know, sometimes people think the heavier a watch, the more valuable it is, or the better it is. That's not the case here. This is 146 grams. That's 10 grams lighter, 12 grams lighter than the Ward, and 10 grams lighter than the Monta. But it's so comfortable. It doesn't matter if it's a little bit lighter weight. It's just so comfortable. So if I was gonna pick one of these three watches, guys, I would pick the Geno all day. You know, whatever things people say about this company, whatever they don't like about it, it doesn't matter. They made a fantastic watch and they did it themselves. And it's a hand-finished watch. So that's my comparison of these three watches, guys. I hope you liked it. I'm gonna go ahead and shut the lights off and I'll try to get some good Lume shots for you here now. Christopher Ward, Monta Oceanking, Ginault silent service. You're gonna notice a trend here, guys. They all have BGW9, blue glowing lume. Now when the lume starts to go down on this watch, it can be hard to see where that arrow is. And it can be hard to see, you know, how far along are you? But that's not the case on the Monta. Even though it's difficult to turn, you have those minute gradients, which at least up to 15 minutes help quite a bit, you know, with seeing exactly where you are in your timing. But being a 60 click bezel, you can't line it up perfectly. But the Geno, look at that, guys. Look at that, 120 clicks, lines up perfect every time, and you have minute gradients all the way around, and much more lume in this watch. It just glows brighter, it glows longer, and it's just better. I'm gonna stand back and let you guys kind of just take a look here. Let this go for a little while. You can see the Ward, the bezel on the Ward's already kind of starting to get less legible. Maybe I didn't hit it with enough juice, but you can probably tell these upper numbers didn't get as much UV light as the lower numbers on the bezel. And that's kind of what it looks like at nighttime. It's just a little harder to read. The Monta is very legible at nighttime. It's a nice watch to look at, but the Gino's just better. I mean, it's plain and simple. It's just better. It's the best of these three watches. Oh, and I forgot to mention, guys, the Geno is gaining less than 1 second a day. It's regulated for 6 weeks, and it shows. It's blatantly obvious.